Hello everyone and welcome back to the video. Today we're going to be talking about a very interesting topic, a very interesting discussion that I will leave open-ended because quite frankly it is a little bit outside my comfort zone. And don't worry, if you read the title and you're a little bit shocked, you didn't really like the title too much, I don't like it either. It's a little bit of clickbait, and trust me, as soon as I found out who made this title, I'm going to destroy them. Don't even worry about it. Take my word on this one, guys, okay? But in the meantime, we've got a very interesting discussion on our hands, and the concept is fascinating. The idea is, why did it take so long for the game to develop over the last 20 years, and how come the older generation pro players, why couldn't they come up with the most modern, most effective strategies like 18 pop scouts or 19 pop archers? How come they were doing 24 pop pure skirm and then 22 pop scouts? Why did it take so long? Why did we spend 10 years doing 22 pop scouts? Well, it turns out there's a number of reasons that I've come up with, and like I said earlier, I will leave it rather open-ended, and I hope to see a lot of discussion being chimed up in the comments. I want to see people pitching in with what they think, what they've experienced, because I've played back in the day, and I hope to create a lot of discussion around this topic because I truly love this kind of discussion. So without further ado, let's go ahead and answer the question of why were AoE2 pro players so bad 10 to 20 years ago? Well, to start things off, listen, I can say for sure the pro players 10, 20 years ago were not bad at all. In fact, they were playing some really good Age of Empires 2 for what they had at the time. There's a number of factors that actually held pro players back and kept the meta developing at a rather slow pace. The reason why I'm analyzing the uptimes to Feudal Age as like the core of this video is because it's very easy to analyze how the meta is going from this one aspect. Like for example, there's a lot of things we can talk about, like out-microing ballistics. We can talk about attack round with Mangonel, a lot of things that were, modern tactics that not really popular back in the day. But the Feudal Age is key. Every game goes up to Feudal Age. Every game has an opening strategy. And so by analyzing the opening strategies, we're able to kind of understand how fast the meta was developing and what the best openings were at the time and how that reflected the entire gameplay. All right, so to start things off, the reason why, just bottom line, why we're able to play so much better in terms of Age of Empires 2 gameplay now than 20 years ago or 10 years ago is, simply put, the quality of life features. When Definitive Edition was released, it brought so many quality of life features that I think a lot of us take for granted these days. Let me run you through a couple of them that I've compiled here. So the first quality of life feature is the fact that you can pass from sheep to boar, from boar to sheep, any kind of food resource, deer to sheep, and it all counts as one resource. Did you know that back in the day, if you were taking boar and you accidentally clicked the sheep, you lost all the food. You didn't even have to go gather the sheep, you just lost the food from the boar. And so right away, Dark Age is infinitely harder because we've got this random thing that if you're taking boar, it's not the same food source as sheep, it's not the same food source as berries, and so even just clicking from one to the other, you lost all the resources. If you were gathering food of any source and you clicked wood, just by clicking a tree, your villager lost all his resources. So just simply put, Dark Age was so difficult because you had to watch out from what you're clicking, what your villagers are doing, everything like that. Also, we didn't have shift clicking. Think of everything that you're doing in the game with shift Q. We didn't have that. So if you're taking one sheep and you click, okay, villagers shift to the other one, they naturally just go from one to the next. We didn't have that back in the day. I say we, but truthfully, people were playing way before I was even, a toddler. But people back in the day didn't have access to shift queuing. So they finish a sheep and the good players would right away, as soon as the sheep is done, they click the other sheep so villagers don't bump. Otherwise, villagers stop gathering sheep, they bump, they do their dance, the bad pathing villager dance, we all know it. And then 5 seconds later, they're all gathering the other sheep. Boom, we lost like 20, 30 res simply because we don't have access to shift queue. And it's just the way the game is played. And so naturally, just from the start, we can't get fast uptimes because the game just doesn't allow it. Even the best players back in the day probably can't do 18 pop on the conditions they were playing, and this is just one of the factors as well. They probably can't do 18 pop uptimes, and nowadays 18 pop is standard, very, very simple, straightforward to do with any civ. And this is just one of the things that held players back. There are a ton of other quality of life changes, by the way. This is just one of them. Other ones, for example, you don't even see how many villagers you have on each resource. Back in the day, you just saw you had 100 vills, and that's it. You don't know how many on which resource. You don't know what they're taking. You don't know anything. Zero information. The base game gave us nothing, and so just microing the economy or managing the economy rather was a task of its own. It was very difficult to do. Nothing was clear, and simply put, just developing from Dark Age to Feudal Age was a challenge in of itself and was really difficult. So that's the first point for this video as to why pro players were struggling back in the day to hit fast uptimes. Simply quality of life. There's a long list of quality of life features, like I said, that we got from Definitive Edition, from a bunch of community patches back in the day as well. I'm sure people in the comments would know more and can compile them, but for now, just know that there was a ton of changes changes that really made the game a lot easier. The second point that it's super important as to why it kind of held players back was lag. People don't realize how bad lag was. Back in the day, once again, I'm using this phrase a lot, you had minimum like 200-300 ping if you're playing against someone from a different country than you, a different region than you, because it was a player-to-player connection. And this was, in my time, this is like 10 years ago, this is considered not bad. If you go further back, the connections were even worse, and I've even spoken to Doubts. I don't know what this is. He was playing on dial-up connection, something to do with it. I don't even know how this works. And apparently the lag there was terrible. Like we're talking 700, 800 ping, maybe more. We're talking like seconds in between every action that you had to take because of how bad the lag was. And this on its own completely makes the game super difficult to micro, super difficult to play sharp, and very difficult to even consider faster uptimes or tight builds because they're simply not possible. And when it comes to lag, to play perfectly under lag, you have to predict things and you have to do actions before you even see them happening. For example, simple example, you're luring a boar. Back in the day, you had to shoot the boar twice, not once. Another quality of life. So you shoot the boar twice. Before the second shot goes off, you already have to click back to your town center, because if you wait to see the second shot on your screen and then you click back to town center, you're like 2-3 seconds behind. Your villager's taken 2 hits, and no one knew about the palisade trick to make the boar stop. I don't even know if that was even possible, but no one knew about it, and so the villager will probably die, and you don't have the boar. And so you have to predict the action. You shoot once and then already click, so then you shoot a second time and then the click action registers through the lag, and then you're back to the town center safely. That is how you played with lag back in the day, and it's even worse. That's luring a boar. It's even worse when you consider microing archer versus archer or scrim versus archer. It was a nightmare. And again, the further back you go, the worse lag was, and I can't even attest to the worst of the worst when it comes to lag. You got to hear it from another pro. The third pro I have, or the third reason as to why pros were kind of falling behind or taking their time developing the meta, was the fact that they had really bad hardware. People don't know this about me, but I started playing with a box screen monitor. It's not a flat screen monitor, it's a box. A box. I had a ball mouse, I had a terrible, like literally $2 keyboard, if that. Really, it's for the garbage. And that's what I was playing with. And back in the day, even before that, the hardware was probably even worse. My resolution was like 1280 by 760, something horrendous. And the gameplay is just unplayable of that. Like nowadays, 1920 by 1080 is the standard. That's considered bad. 60 FPS is considered bad. I'm still playing on 60 FPS. My teammates say like, you need to upgrade. I'm like, I'm chilling. It's fine. Yeah, we just take so much for granted when it comes to hardware. Now, even if you don't have the latest equipment, the mouse and keyboard you're using now, infinitely better than what we had access to before. And before, obviously, the gaming was still developing. And so Razer and all that, they had mice coming out, but it was the first generation and they were expensive only if you got your hands on it. I was also younger, me personally. A lot of people were just younger playing the game, didn't have the money to buy these best, the best mice on the market. So just play with the worst, the worst things imaginable. I think Doubt still plays with terrible equipment, and that of course naturally holds players back. Not an excuse anymore, because even the worst equipment today is still good. Don't worry, if it wasn't an excuse for us back then, it's not an excuse today. And the last thing, which I consider the most important point of all, this is very interesting. The lack of streams and videos made information very rare and very sought after. Back in the day, there was no information transfer except in just absolutely basic ways, like word of mouth or like some like audio or just maybe a small video that's like laggy. There's basically nothing to transfer information for the masses. Like you had to know people. You had to go in there, get the recorded games, which were, from my knowledge as well, they were private. A lot of pro players played with privates, and they sometimes sell the recorded games or only make it available on a website. And if you get the recorded games, you analyze it, and you have to analyze it yourself. You don't have some dumbass looking like me explaining what's happening in the game, breaking it down for you guys. You got nothing. You got yourself. You're looking at the screen. You're just trying to make sense of what they're doing. Okay, 25 pop feudal. This sounds terrible. Heroes going 18 pop scouts. How is this going to work? That is what you have to do with the old Rex. Back in the day, you get your hands on the recorded game, analyze it yourself, limited knowledge, limited learning, and that is how it took forever for things to develop, because information was so rare, and only the people who had contacts, the people who had connections, were the ones that were able to climb in the information department. And I think that's actually really cool. Like these days, of course, one video and everyone knows about it. As soon as something is discovered, one guy discovers it, people talk, we make videos, boom, everyone knows about it. Matter of days, matter of weeks, it's all out there. And it's a really interesting point that I think back in the day, players had a lot of trouble developing and a lot of trouble getting better at the game because simply information was not there for them. So in conclusion, and the point of this video is to showcase that the pro players back in the day were actually playing some really good Age of Empires, but they were playing it based on what they had available to themselves. Over the years, stuff like lag, stuff like, hardware, quality of life features, even balance patches and new civs coming in with better bonuses, all of these factors made it so the game naturally got faster, players got better, and today I think we consider ourselves privileged because, you know, as soon as anything comes out, everyone knows about it. It's really easy to get better at the game as there's a lot of information, a lot of guides, and it's truly kind of like the peak of Age of Empires 2. The game will continue to develop. We got new civs coming in all the time, and new strategies will continue to surface up and continue to rotate in and out of the meta over time, and I think that's really cool. But it's important to respect the history and appreciate how far the players have come, and they naturally just took a little longer because things just weren't in their favor back in the day. Hope you guys found this video interesting. As I mentioned earlier, if you do have anything to add in terms of the history, in terms of your opinion even, or your experience, definitely let me know in the comments below, and I'm sure we can spark some incredible discussion for some Age of Empires 2, because the history is always important to respect, and it's always important to look back and see how things were being done. Thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Like, comment, subscribe if you enjoyed, and peace.